Hi, this is Steve from PixelBump. Welcome to the Replication through Scripting tutorial. So my first question is, can you make 1704 graphics in a day? To do that, you would have to create a graphic every 47.33333 infinity seconds for 28 straight hours. That would be create a new file, edit the information, save the file, all in 47.3 seconds. And you would be doing that for 28 straight hours. And you would still need to render. And if your renders took a minute on their own, you would have 56 hours of work ahead of you. Well, if you want a better way to conquer a crazy workload and you want to free yourself from repetitive tasks, welcome to Flavor Country. So what is scripting in AE? It's an amazing power to perform a program inside of After Effects, making simple or complex tasks handled by the computer. When should you use a script? When you find you have an action that you're performing over and over again, some repetitive task. And if this repetitive task can be broken down into simple, repeatable steps. Now, scripts are not going to create for you, but they can be great production artists. By removing the repetitive tasks, you're free to spend more time creating and less time replicating. So, before we get started, let's look at a couple of references. The first and most useful is the AE After Effects Scripting Guide. And this is the Big Daddy reference. This is what I have open every time I'm making a script. It breaks down everything you're doing inside a script, tells you what everything is called within After Effects so that you can use it within your scripts, and it's going to give you examples of how to add different functionality to your scripts. A great introduction to the basics of scripting is available here at Toots Plus. And if you want to spend a little money, over at FX PhD, they have their AFX 210 Introduction to After Effects Scripting. I took this course with Lloyd Alvarez. He was a great teacher. And if you really want to get into scripting, this is a great way to get started. Lloyd also is one of the moderators here at AE Enhancers. When you're having trouble figuring out why your script isn't working, this is a great forum to come to. A lot of people have probably had the questions you've had, and you can search through here or post a new topic. It's a really nice community of people willing to help you figure out your script. And here at AE Scripts, you can see this is Lloyd's section. He's created a ton of great scripts here, and there are just a ton of great scripts here in general that you can use for your own work. If you don't want to write one, there's a possibility somebody here has already conquered the problem you're trying to deal with. So in the AE Bootcamp 10, we took a look at a simple script. Here we're going to look at something a little more complex and break it down. Now, I am not a real programmer, and you don't have to be either. But I've been writing scripts long enough that I can copy and paste out of old scripts into new ones and create more and more complex functionality. This script was used for Spellslingers Season 2, and what I needed to do was take 284 different card images for all the cards in the new M15 Magic the Gathering card pack and create 6 different graphics for each card. I was able to create all of them in less than an hour through the script and render them in about 15. So that 56 hours for me only lasted 18. Even adding in the 8 hours it took me to write this script, I did it in less than half the time, freeing me to spend more time on the creative end rather than the replication end. All right, so I'm going to run a demo of this script so you can see how fast and easy something like this works. I'm going to run the script, and I'm going to load in 10 cards. And I'm not going to edit here. This is all real time. Here I've created 80 graphics out of my 10 cards. And it was just that fast. If we come over to this new folder, you can see here are all the different things it created. We were able to create lower thirds in left and right for every single card. We were able to create the side cards. These are what pop up on the side when a new hand is dealt. We were able to create all of the focus cards, so when somebody talks about the abilities of a certain card, there's a graphic that can come up. And it was all done just that fast. So let's close this all out and talk about how this all works. Now, the first thing I added here is an app undo group. What this allows me to do is create a single undo command for the entire script. So if anything went wrong, I could hit undo once and undo every action the script has done. Otherwise, I would be undoing thousands and thousands of actions. This is just a really nice extra to add into your scripts. Even if it's not going to someone else, it's really useful for yourself. The next line is where we're declaring a variable, and we're giving it the name spreadsheet. And this variable is a file open dialog. So when I hit play on the script, this window is popping up. And the next variable is going to be the read OK. If the spreadsheet was opened, we're going to have a true value here. So the next line, if read OK, and by just writing if read OK like this, we're saying if this is true. So if read OK is true, meaning that we got a spreadsheet. If we got a spreadsheet through the file open dialog, then perform these next set of tasks. An if statement is just a simple piece of logic saying, if a condition is true, perform these actions. If it is not, you can perform these actions. That's an if else. So if this is true, we're going to declare a new variable called spreadsheet contents, and that is going to be the spreadsheet that we read through the file open dialog, and we're going to read in the contents of that spreadsheet. The next variable we declare is the items array, and that is the spreadsheet contents, which we've just declared here, and we're going to split it. We're going to take our array and split it into a new object. And here we declare that new object, the items object. To build this new object, we're going to do a for loop. And a for loop is just a way of repeating a command over and over again until a condition is satisfied. So here, I'm going to say a new variable called I is equal to 0. And as long as I is less than the items array length, this for loop will keep running. And every time it runs through the for loop, it's going to add I++, meaning add 1 to this number here. So the first time it runs through, it's 0. The second time it runs through, it's 1. The third time, 3, until it is equal to the items array length, in this case, 284 times. Now, the items array is going to be split also, and this /t means that my spreadsheet is separated by tabs. That means there's a tab in between each item in the spreadsheet. If we look at the text format that is read into the After Effects script, you can see there's a tab in between each piece of information. So where it sees a tab, it's going to keep splitting. And what we're going to do is create names that we can then reference later in the script. So go to the top of my spreadsheet here. The episode is the first line. The card name is the second line. The title of the card, third line. The power of the card, fourth line. And you'll see that it does start at 0. All arrays start at 0. And we're just going to go through this spreadsheet and give each of the columns its own new name that we can reference in our script. The next thing we're going to do is declare a variable for the found template. These are the template comps, and we want to say that we're going to find these templates. This is a little out of order. It's going to come in down here, but I just declared it up here just to get it out of the way. The next thing we're going to do is check for a parent folder. This isn't anything that is necessary to do, but I did it for my own ease and for my own organization. And here I've declared a variable called the parent folder, and I'm looking for 00 comps. And here it is in my project. I know that this project file is going to have a 00 comps, and that is where I'm going to want all of my duplicated graphics to exist. And it's going to get a new folder name from the 00 of my spreadsheet. Right here at 00, I have SO2. So I am saying that this new folder is equal to SO2. Same folder that ends up being in my project. Now, this next piece of code is just a little bit of error checking for myself. If, for whatever reason, when you export your script out of either Google Docs or out of Excel, sometimes it puts quotation marks around pieces of text or information. All this is doing is saying, look for quotation marks, either single or double, and get rid of them. So now I can take this new folder name without any quotation marks and add it to the project with this command app.project.items add folder, and it's going to take the folder name from new folder. Next, we have a little bit of error checking where it's just trying to make sure that the parent folder exists and that the episode folder exists. Make sure that both of these folders exist before we continue. That way, in case for some reason the script is not working, it doesn't go through, run a bunch of commands, and you end up with a lot of mess inside your project. So let's get down to kind of the meat and potatoes here. So we're going to begin the card L3 left. So let's go and open that project. Bring our script back up, and this will give us a little bit of focus. So if the template comp is found, and we declared that that was true up here, if the template is found, run this next set of commands. Now we're going to do another for loop, and we're going to do it for every item in the object. Our object that we declared up here, items object, for every item, every item in the items object, we're going to run this next piece of code. And we're going to do another for loop. And we're going to say that a new variable is equal to 1. And the reason this one is equal to 1 is because I'm about to run through all the items in my project. And while an array starts at 0, your layers in the comp and your items in your bin start at 1. Now we're going to go through all the items in the project, which is app.project.numItems. And if one of the items matches a name L3 card hash card name L, which we have here, we're going to run some more code. Now these slashes and $signs before the beginning and end is what's called a regular expression in JavaScript. And all this means is you have to match this exactly. I don't want something else that has a similar name or just part of the name. I'm looking for that exact name. And if it finds it, we are going to declare a new variable, template comp. and that is going to be equal to the item with that same number that we've just found in our for loop. Now, the next piece is going to say if the template comp, which is the item we've just found, is an instance of a comp item. An instance of something is just a nice way to be able to find out if something is or is not a specific type of item in After Effects. And if we did find that template, it is now true. We've found our template. If it did not find the template, we're going to throw up an alert saying an error. I found the template, but it is not a comp. So if you had something with the exact same name, but it was an image file or a piece of audio, and After Effects tried to grab it, it wouldn't be trying to duplicate the rest of the code based on an incorrect item. The next piece of code here is a new variable, and we're going to declare the duplicate comp. And the duplicate comp is the template comp dot duplicate. This is a command to take that template and make a copy. The next variable is a power clean name, and I called it that because, again, we're going to run that little piece of code that will replace the quotation marks. And the power clean name is items object with the correct number title. And up here, again, we had title, so we can just refer to it simply by that name. Then we take out any quotation marks, and we declare a new variable. And this is going to be the card number. And each of these has a card number at the beginning, items 1 through 184. And what I want to do is I want to perform a slice off the name to get the number. So I'm going to start at 0, and I'm going to count over 1, 2, 3, 4 characters. So that's the 0 to 4, and it's just going to grab that piece of the name. So it's just going to grab the 0001, 0002, etc. Then I'm going to take my duplicated comp and I'm going to rename it. I'm going to take that template name and replace the hashtag here, right there, with the sliced out number for the card. And I'm going to replace card name here with the power cleaned name, the card's name from the spreadsheet without quotation marks. Because I have the card's name, I'm going to come down and take the duplicate comp layer 4, so right here, layer 4, and I'm going to take the source text, which is what is written right here, and I'm going to set the value to that cleaned up name, no quotation marks. So each card will get its proper name right here from the text. And here we can see there were ones with quotation marks, even though in the original Excel spreadsheet, no quotation marks were used. That's why it was necessary to add this little extra piece of code everywhere to make sure that all of my names would be without quotation marks. Next, I'm going to take the variable for the power, which is this piece of code, this piece of text right here, line 6 in my comp. I'm going to take the power name and I'm going to run it through the cleaner again. So now I have the power cleaned up, no quotations. If the power is equal to 0, meaning that there was no number to put in here, I am going to take the enabled of the layer, which means the eyeball, and turn it off. Enabled equals false means turn that right off. I don't want to see it. However, if it's equal to anything other than 0, I'm going to take that layer 6 and I'm going to set the source text to this power cleaned name. The next piece of code here deals with this, which is called the colorless mana. And I'm going to grab another variable, which is the colorless number. If the colorless number is equal to 0, I'm going to turn off layers 7 and 8. I'm just going to make that completely disappear. As long as there's a number other than 0, I'm again going to take the source text and swap it out with a new number. Now we're going to start doing the image changes. We've got a little image here for our colored mana, and we've got an image here for the card, and we need to swap those out for each and every card. So we're going to declare a new variable, and we're going to give it the card name. And for every variable in the project again, I'm going to do a search, and I'm going to search for this card name. And those card names are all just image files that I've imported into After Effects. I have one for every card, and here we can see the ones for 1 through 10. So it's going to look for that name of the card. It's going to look for that name of the card and try to match it. If it can find a match in the project for that card name, it is going to take layer 2, right there. It's going to take layer 2 and replace the source of that image with whatever name we just searched for. Now we're going to repeat this process again for the colored mana, this little image here. But because some cards may not have a colored mana, I again had to add an if statement and say if the colored number is 0, if there's no colored mana, then layer 10, my colored mana layer here, is now false as well. Turn that off. If it's anything but 0, we're going to have to do a little bit more work here. And what we're going to do is come in and we're going to say the colored mana color, which here in our spreadsheet, we have all white right now. Everything it's looking for is white colored mana. Later in the spreadsheet, there's green and blue and red and black. But right now, we're only dealing with the whites. It's going to look for that color plus a PSD, and it's going to take that colored mana, and then it's going to take that colored mana name and drop it all to lowercase. As you can see here, we have some capitalization. We want to get rid of that because here in the raster images, our colored manas were all lowercase. So we want to find wherever white.psd is, and if it's a capital W, we want to just make sure it's lowercase so it will match the actual file in our project. Then it's going to run through a new loop, again starting at 1 because we're going to search through our project, and if the item name matches one of those colored mana colors, so if it matches black or white or red or green or blue, we are going to take layer 10 right here and change its source, replace source with the name of the color that we just found. So in this case, it's going to take this red image, swap it out, and make it a white image. Now, the next thing is we could have multiple mana colors here. There could be 3 or 4. And let's see if we can find an example in our duplicates where that was true. Here we go. Here's one with 3. So we're going to create a new variable called mana layer, and that is going to be equal to that 10th one, the original mana color. And for every colored mana, starting at 1, but less than the total number of colored mana in the spreadsheet. So here, where we had 3, so while 1 is less than 3, 2 is less than 3, we are going to make duplicates. So we're going to create 2 new duplicates based on this comp here. And we are going to set up another duplicate. Here we go, just the same as we duplicated the comp. We're going to duplicate this layer. We're going to duplicate the layer. Then we're going to take that duplicated layer and set the parent to the previous layer, and then set the position based on some numbers that make sense. In this case, it was based on the width and the height of the original image. And that ends the image changes. The next thing we're going to do is start setting up all the placement of everything. Because we've got text that can be longer or shorter, because we have items that can be turned on or off, and because we have multiple instances available of different images, we're going to need to reposition things, or everything's going to be based on a set of positions in the template that are very, very different. If we look at those two, if we tried to fit this text in here, it would be running right on over all of this stuff. It'd be underneath, it would be a lot of manual cleaning to go back and fix everything. So the way we're going to account for the length of the text is we're going to create a new variable, and we're going to call it the name x, meaning the x-axis, begin. Where does this begin? And we're going to take our layer 4, the card name, and we're going to look at the source rectangle at this time, which is duplicate comp layer 4, again, just the card name, just the card name. At this time in the comp, be it wherever it is, here it's at 10, here it's at 100, and then we're going to take a new comp, then we're going to declare a new variable and say whatever, and this variable will be equal to whatever the width of that first variable. And we're going to do that twice. We're going to do it for the name of the card, and we're going to do it for the power of the card. Now, the next thing we'll do is set up the offsets. Now we have our widths, so the next thing we want to do is set up our offsets. And the name x offset, the name offset x is going to be equal to that width plus 40 pixels. So however long this is, add 40 pixels, and that is going to be the total space I'm going to need for this next piece of text. Then again, for the slash number right here, the 5-4, I'm going to want this width plus this width plus another 40. So that gives us those spaces in between all of the text names. Then I'm going to set the position of layer 6, the slash numbers right here, based on the name offset x position. So I'm going to take that length of text that it had, whatever that x value is, that is going to be the new x position of this number slash number. Next thing we want to do is look at the slash number and say, did we turn that off? Did we disable that earlier in the script? If we did, then the new position for the colorless mana number right here, layer 7, is going to be this calculation of the slash offsets position based on the name, so whatever that final position was, and then we're going to take away 118 pixels, so it'll get rid of the position this text would have taken up. If it's not turned off, we're going to set the position to the width of this number plus 40, and then we're going to drop the x down 3. And I found the x needing to be dropped down 3 was just something where everything wasn't in alignment, and I was just trying to correct a piece of alignment. The next piece of code is another if statement, and what it's going to ask is, did we turn this colorless mana off earlier? Was that set to 0? If it was set to 0 and this has been turned off, we will have a false. And if it is false, I want to make sure all of these little pieces of colored mana aren't sitting over further than they need to be. I'm going to take the space this would have taken up, and I'm going to take it away from these images so they will slide over as well. The last thing I'm going to do is take my duplicated comp and I'm going to put it in the new episode folder, that's SO2 folder. Then I'm going to declare a new variable called my render queue item, and it is going to be equal to a new render queue item, and I'm going to add this duplicated comp to it. So not only did I go through, create this entire comp, change out the images, change the text, and reposition everything, I've also added it right here to my render queue. So I don't even have to do that. When this script is finished, all I'm going to have to do is hit render. Now the script does go on for quite a bit because we also have to do the right side. And the right side is a lot of the duplication of the left, but it has different offsets for a lot of the text positions and image positions. After that, it gets so much simpler. We end up having the single cards, which are just these images here. And all we have to do for that is come in the same way we did with the lower thirds, swap out the name on the template, and then replace an image. Here we're swapping out the name. We have the exact same piece of code we used earlier. And here we have the replacement for the image. And again, if you notice, new flag, I'm actually reusing a piece of code earlier. If you've written it once, I don't see any need to write it over and over again. I would much rather copy and paste, because if it worked there, it's gonna work here. Again, we take that new comp, we add it to our render queue. We repeat the same thing for the card on the right side. And then these two side cards, we're doing the exact same thing again. We're going to duplicate our comp, we're going to swap out the name, and we're going to swap out an image. Then we're going to take that duplicate comp, parent it to our new folder, add it to the render queue, and for this one, I had to add a couple extra lines. And this is because these side cards not only have to sit with an animation that brings them in and out, but then the editor also needs a still of this image to use as a hold in the edit. So I created a new variable after my render queue item called the render queue item still. And it's going to add the exact same comp, but I'm going to set a time span start of 1. So at 1 second, which is right here, after the animation in has finished. I could have set it less than that, but 1 was safe and it was an easy round number to add to the script. At that time span start of 1, I want you to come in and set the duration of this new comp to 0.042. And I figured out that number with a little trial and error, just trying to get a single frame. But this piece of code just gives me a single frame that I can render out along with my animation. I repeat again for the left side. I repeat again for the right side, even though I didn't update the name here in the comments. Then we finally have a few pieces of error checking, meaning if it couldn't find the template comp, none of this code would have run. It would have jumped all the way down here and said I couldn't find the template comp. And if it couldn't open the spreadsheet file, it would, instead of running all this code, it would give me an alert saying there was an error opening the file. And finally, I end it all with my app undo group. And that is the code where you saw me create 80 different graphics in less than a minute. I don't care how fast you are, that was probably faster. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and I hope you've learned something you can use in your work. If you have any questions, please hit me up on Twitter or Facebook or in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Go and create.